Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Citi News.
It's 17:30 GMT. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. I am Umaru Sanda Amadou. Tonight, I'm here with
Melody Fafak Batufe.
And coming up over the next 90 minutes, doctors named as being negligent in the death of an accident victim, Charles Emisa, some 3 months ago, say they are being abused and threatened following the public naming and shaming. Also, coming up, the education think tank demanding the increase in the number of days for the BEC, saying 5 days for 10 subjects is burdensome for the children. We'll be hearing from them. And later on Eyewitness News, Deputy AG Dr. Sremsai and former AG Godfrey Dami trade words over the recent decision to release and rearrest former Bafa Stock CEO Abdul Wahab Hanan. Stay with 97.3 CTFM for more of this and many other stories on Eyewitness News. And in business,
Chinese battery materials giant moves to acquire Atlantic Lithium in $210 million deal.
That's in 50 minutes from the Citi Business Desk. Eyewitness News is live across Ghana on a number of affiliate stations and around the globe on citinewsroom.com. We are on YouTube, look for Citi FM. We are on Facebook, look for Citi FM and listen to the discussion. You can send messages to our WhatsApp number 0539 986 996 0539 986 996. Alternatively, you can go on X and mention my handle at Umaru Sanda or at Citi 973. This Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM broadcasting from Accra. I am Umaru Sanda Amadou. Let's start off with the Ghana Medical Association now. Yesterday, Professor Ajimambedu Akosa, a former Director General of the Ghana Health Service, a pathologist who was chairing a committee that investigated an accident that led to the death of a man, Charles Emisa, presented his report. And as part of the report, recommendations were made for the punishment of the doctors involved as well as the nurses. Now, that public announcement also included the names of the doctors who were deemed culpable or negligent in the action that led to the death of that accident victim. 24 hours on, the Ghana Medical Association, the association that these doctors belong to, is unhappy with the state of affairs. Dr. Richard Salome is General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. He's joining us on the line. Doc, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Good evening, Namara. Good evening to your listeners.
Good evening to you. What seems to be the problem with what happened yesterday, the announcement as made?
Well, again, let me first share my condolences with our sister and colleague, Matilda Emisa, and the family, and commend them first also for their strength and their resolve to not use this as one incident that passes, but then to help improve the whole emergency system. And they have gone on to launch a foundation to do the same. And they will definitely have our support at any time they call. Regarding the report, we haven't seen the full report. I must put that on record. What we have seen is the abridged version as presented by the committee and the ministry to the media yesterday. From the report, you notice that multiple findings have been made, about 14 in total, and recommendations on same. However, you notice that for more than 24 hours, all we have focused on is health professionals who must be sanctioned, punished, or as we call it. And that is one of the things that we are talking about. One, putting the names out there risks many things. And already some of these colleagues are facing calls, threats, cyberbullying, etc. Let's note that if the report was conclusive in nature, they will not have been referred now to the regulators. They have been referred to regulators to go through the process, to the penal committee, to the disciplinary committee, before then the appropriate sanctions the pronouncement of guilt and appropriate sanctions would then be applied. However, we already are on the rule and focus on only and only that matter only. Meanwhile, the report talks about, for example, the opening findings talk about the fact that he could have survived if the ambulance officials were able to apply pressure at the site of the wound, be able to administer IV fluids. They talked about certain delays, then talk about systemic issues, the fact money, and other systemic recommendations that have been given. We are not talking about those. Interestingly, Umaru, in 2018, when a man also went to about 7 different facilities and unfortunately passed because of this same number syndrome. The recommendations, if you look for them and check, are almost exactly the same. We should set up an emergency fund. Do we have that now? No. We should train EMTs to be able to do certain things so that the emergency, the ambulance is an extension of an emergency until they're able to secure formal care in a hospital setting. Have we been able to do the same? No. Multiple things that were supposed to have been done. Because the focus was on let's punish, let's scapegoat, let's deal with them. Eventually, we came back to this same unfortunate incidents because we are refusing to stop and solve the structural issues. And that is where our concern is. Because that has deflected all the conversation and taken it away from the issues that will actually help prevent a future occurrence. And I may not be surprised if we go on this tangent that we may come back and be discussing these similar issues in the future if we do not take care and change course to dealing with the root causes of the issues than just focusing on let's punish.
So in your view, what was the effect of the announcement yesterday relating specifically to the individuals named as being negligent? Are you suggesting that that committee's findings could not necessarily serve as a basis for their punishment and that it was a much ado about nothing?
I haven't said so.
Because I implied that because you've said they have still been referred to their regulators for action, and you've talked about 2 levels of investigation that will be conducted.
A statement of fact.
Yes,
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I get you. That's what I'm asking then. That does it mean yesterday's announcement cannot form the basis so that, for instance, the Medical and Dental Council cannot say, you, Dr. ABC, you were found culpable or negligent by the Professor Ajimambedu Akosa committee, and for that reason, we were going to punish you by letting you do A, B, C, D. Are you saying that will not happen? There would have to be fresh investigation?
Of course. The Medical and Dental Council is a statutory body, and there are clear processes laid down by law. You would have to go through the penal committee, and the penal committee establishes the, should I say, prima facie evidence. And then you move on to the disciplinary committee, which establishes the quantum of your should I say, your practice, and then decides what sanctions are appropriate to be meted out to you to remedy the situation. So it may form, the findings of the committee may form the evidence that passes the penal committee. But the Medical and Dental Council will not just pick that committee's report and just immediately say, we have stopped your license, and you will be accorded that. The law even allows you an appellate process so that you can be able to appeal even the decision.
Good. And that's what I was asking. So that's what I was saying. Then what was the effect then of the committee relating specifically to the punitive measures that have to be taken against them? Should we then have just referred the individuals to the Medical and Dental Council to deal with ab initio?
Well, there are multiple approaches. The minister in his wisdom chose to use the fact-finding committee. And the fact-finding committee is supposed to go on the ground, find out what really happened. It has its uses, and in fact, it's an important mission because it also exposes multiple things within the sector. Where we are saying is that you could still refer these people and go through this process without necessarily, of course, we understand the other side where the public is shouting for somebody to deal with. And so, there may be issues of trust and say you are trying to shield somebody, etc., without mentioning the name. But of course, the long-term effects of this, especially on the individuals, when there are other processes to be followed, is where we are concerned. And not to shield anyone or to say that accountability measures should not be applied. Be that as it may, one other concern has to do with facility liability. There is what we call facility liability and professional liability. And that is why if you go to more practice insurance, etc., the facility takes such insurance and the individuals are also mandated to take that just as the facility, because what processes were in place, what supervisory mechanisms were in place. All workers work in vicarious liability for the facility, regardless of the professional liability they hold. And so if they have not been appropriately trained, they have not been supervised properly, what institutional measures were ditched as well? And that is why Dr. Citi, a former regulator, the Registrar of the Medical and Dental Council, raised concerns about the report where there seems to be not much said about the facilities where this occurred, the heads of the department, the internal structures that were there, and what punishments they should also face in making sure that systems are in place to make things happen. Because those are the critical issues. If your systems are right, if you didn't bring the devil and plug him into the system, he will act right. And so it is okay to try to jump onto the issue of punishment of individuals, singling them out. But if you don't set the system right, you may take these individuals out, granted that they are guilty. Other ones will come, and we will continue having this. Like we said, this is not the first time we are discussing NOBED. Because we have refused to focus on the systemic issues, the coordination, the pre-hospital care, and what causes people to delay in the emergency and stoke up beds, especially the finance, where people come in, he can't afford the CT scan, he's there 4 or 5 days instead of just 24 hours at the emergency, and nobody is willing to pay. And the facility must also survive. And so they stay in there, choke up the beds, and then when you come, there will be no bed to admit you. And the fact that Accra of 6 million has how many beds of emergency if you add private and extend it beyond the central part of Accra? Barely 200 or a little over 200. And so we way lower than the 5,000 beds WHO recommends. So we need to focus on the bigger issues and deal with them as well.
On the issue that you raised earlier about your members being harassed and threatened following the announcement, what would you rather happen? That the committee should come and say, we have identified 4 or 5 faceless individuals who were responsible for the death of Charles Emisa?
Umaru, as we speak, if you go to the Medical and Dental Council, Nurses and Midwifery Council, Pharmacy Council, Allied Health Council, there are multiple individuals who are undergoing various forms of disciplinary processes and procedures. I am not sure that on a daily basis we have to announce them before we think that something is being done. They are being suspended, people's licenses have been withdrawn, people have been punished for various reasons, some have even been referred for criminal prosecution. I mean, we can do same. It doesn't necessarily have to be names hanged before we think that something is being done. I think that is the position, that we can do same without necessarily have to do that. And if they are being punished, naming them necessarily, like I'm saying, naming them necessarily doesn't mean that the process has terminated. They are now going to go through other processes. So I do not think we should dwell too much about this name matter. We, out of 14, we are still dwelling on one which has to do with individuals, and we are not focusing on other recommendations in the same report. And soon another matter comes, we switch on to another, and we are gone. So the next one happens, and we are back at it.
I get you, and I understand the thinking. You want us to look at the bigger picture and deal with this matter. But if you were the family members of you were the family of Charles Emisa, you would be interested in knowing which doctor was negligent, for which reason your family member passed away. And if that is announced, perhaps that could even give some closure to the family, don't you think?
Umaru, we know the family members, and one who has been speaking for the family is Dr. Matilda Emisa. She has been interviewed on multiple stations, as we said. And even just the recent PRESEC by the Fireside event, she was on panel. she herself has raised the concern that there are systemic issues. She herself practicing in the emergency and being an aspiring emergency physician has raised this concern. That is why the family is forming a foundation to deal with systemic issues. This is not my words, but her words. So let us not cry louder than the bereaved. Let's not also overdraw them into a matter and further worsen the grief. They are there. They have seen the report, reacted to the report, talked about the specific issues, and also highlighted the systemic issues that they feel could have been corrected along the way. And they have formed the foundation to even not just stop at the fact that they've lost a brother, and dearly so, but they are going ahead to look at training of doctors, nurses, EMTs on the vehicles. We're looking at infrastructure and other things. If they only thought it was about somebody and dealing with that, why would they go all this through all? So, Umaru, again, like I said, it's not about the bigger picture. It's about the issues that belie all these matters so that we don't come back and have this interview once again.
Do you think, though, that this would perhaps put some fear in your members who, and I believe that there are bad nuts everywhere. There could be bad nuts in your association and in your membership. Do you think this is deterrent enough so that in the future we wouldn't have this repeated? You and I don't have to have this interview again.
Well, it's a fair point to make. It is good to have deterrence, but there's a thin line between deterrence and demoralization. Remember, it is not every health professional that is bad and negligent or what the words we are using. There are many doctors who are having to contribute to pay for ambulance to move, pay for medications for patients. I came back on my post about 3 weeks ago from a situation where doctors were collecting money to support a patient, trying to get fuel ambulance and do all sorts of things, and we all contribute. Many of the health workers, if they were that terrible, we will not be walking into Kolebu. The thousands who walk to Kolebu today will not be going home. And so there is something good about majority. Where there are people who have been found to have been culpable and behaved in ways not consistent with professional standards, let's focus on that and handle that appropriately, as has been referred. But when we lump everything together, it may have the opposite effect rather, as is happening in other places, in America and co, where in the UK and co, where people begin to practice defensively. So you come in, I can't get a CT scan, I can't do so and so, I will just detach, get you to do that. If you don't get it, that's not my problem. I will keep strictly to the rules. The other bit is that the medical practice gets more and more expensive because people want to go litigious, people want to take more practice. Insurance facilities are having to pay huge sums to do those things. So there's a fine line we need to walk. Again, the systems cure the issues permanently. For scapegoatism, attaching particular people, it will cure the momentary issues, but to when? In 2018, the same recommendations were given. People were taken through disciplinary committee. Some were suspended. Are we not back here? So the issue is, where do we want to focus and solve the issues? So in a permanent way than be coming back, and the focus is all about professionals.
Before you go, you used the term, in fact, you asked a question, is it deterrent or demoralization? In this instant case, do you think your people are being demoralized or they're being deterred?
When you say my people, in what sense are you asking?
Your people being the doctors, in the generality of the number of doctors in Ghana, and then narrow it down specifically to those who were named. Well,
Umaru, if you read the commentary, the posts on social media, the lumping of everybody together and doing that, and you even read the sentiments on various health practitioner platforms, you notice that people feel their efforts are not appreciated. The only time they are talked about is when they do a small wrong occurs, quote and unquote, let me put it that way, not to minimize any wrong that occurs. But where any wrong occurs, then all of a sudden we want the hammer and gavel to fall. But tomorrow I'm going to ask you, the same person who is attaching this energy to do this and make sure people are punished. Health is a right. When was the last time a journalist or other Ghanaians have led a march to make sure that we get the right to health guaranteed to all of us? We focus on the right to vote. And so we have let my vote allowance, let my vote count alliance. We vote, we march, we are ready to fight police, even get hurt and all that. But the right to keep us alive, say enough to go and vote, we don't even exact anything. We meet our ministers, our MPs, and who we vote for. We don't ask what they are doing for emergency care within our constituencies or districts. We pay attention to when we can vote. My name is not in a certain calendar or a book or so that I can't vote. We as a people must begin to also ask ourselves questions. We also, our health-seeking behavior itself. How do we do it? Such that we wait. Oh, let me lie down small. Oh, let me try small. Let me do this. And it only reports in emergency situations. So there are broader scopes of events around this matter. And I think that if we are so minded to take the report, when we see it, go through it fully, to see all the recommendations from the ambulance service to all the way to the systemic issues about setting up an emergency fund, so that when you will report to a hospital, God forbid, and you need a CT scan, you may have money in your account, but at that moment, somebody pays for that so that you don't have to wait 4 days and choke up a bed for somebody to be looking for money to pay for you. We must focus on the entirety of the report so that we don't come back again.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking to us, sir.
Thank you very much, Umaru.
That's Dr. Richard Salome. He's General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We have several reactions to this, don't we, Fafa?
Yes, we do, from Parliament. And the Health Committee there is urging medical professionals who feel exhausted with the profession to resign rather than compromise the ethics and standards of healthcare delivery. Chairman of the Health Committee and MP for Nabdam, Dr. Mark Nawani, reacted to the development during an engagement with the Investigative Committee.
Because they have been so named, which we find unfortunate, what has happened is some of them, their social media is being flooded with threats. Some are being sent messages. Some are being called various things. And just your name being out there. Imagine you go through this process. Even if they were wrong and they are even disciplined and they get back to work, this burden stays on them.
We are saying that it is beyond just the facility. It is the individuals. And please, if you are a medical professional and you are tired of the work, probably you have to, you can resign. I'm telling you, Ghana will survive. You have, if you are ready to work, please, there are ethics. If you can't do something, you call your colleague doctor, your senior doctor. And one funny thing about doctors is that, the senior doctors, is that they are always happy to be called. Once a junior doctor calls a senior doctor, they are ready to run and come and help. It's something that in my 33 years of practice, I realized that whenever you want help from a doctor you call, a colleague doctor calls that person, you run and come and help. This should not have happened. This has nothing to do with no bed syndrome, but that was the name that was given to it. And that was probably the investigation or the referral that was given to the committee. And it has happened at Kaswa, where somebody who has been admitted, he has spent 36 hours there and they are saying no bed. Has he been lying on the floor all that time that there was no bed at the recovery ward? Do you need to do a cesarean section and send the person automatically or compulsorily to a recovery ward?
You are the chairman of the Health Committee, Dr. Mark Nawani. Meanwhile, chairman of the Investigative Committee, Professor Ajiman Bedu-Akosa, urged the government to ensure that the committee's report does not suffer the fate of previous investigative findings that were left unimplemented or discarded.
We believe that this was not the first time an event like this has happened. Committee reports were done and the reports collected dust. And we want to ensure that this report does not collect dust, but is acted upon. It was for us a very sad reflection. You are a professional, you take a Hippocratic oath, you say I, and you mention Ajimambedu Akosa, and you swear to do that. That is not the establishment, that is not the hospital, that is not the facility. It is you, as a qualified practitioner, registered by the Medical and Dental Council. And therefore, you breached your duty of care.
You heard Professor Ajiman Bedu Akosa, the chairman of the committee that probed the death of Charles Emisa. Still on more stories related to health, the Medical Laboratory Professional Workers Union MELPU says its members have resumed duties at the Central Laboratory of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. The union says the decision follows the appointment of the hospital's Director of Pharmacy, Dr. Charles Ofe-Palm, as acting head of the laboratory pending a crucial meeting scheduled for May 12. Speaking to Citi News, the chairman of MELPU Kolebu chapter, John Kofi Nakoja, said the union hopes to reach a final resolution on the ongoing leadership dispute.
So this morning he came around to brief us what management have said. We are working and we are just waiting for the gentleman to provide or do the needful. So we are working whilst we are waiting for him. So we thank the chief director for his intervention. As law-abiding citizens, we are holding on to his commitments, even though we know so once upon a time some people violated it. But we are with him, we commensurate with him, and we are working as well. So we wait to see what will happen on Tuesday. So we are working. These are my colleagues busily working whilst I take the director around to introduce him to his new department. So per the chief director's direction, he has appointed him to oversee that the place is running smoothly. And we have another engagement with him on Tuesday. So between now and Tuesday, the hierarchy of the laboratory is engaging to find amicable solution to the impasse.
John Kofi Nakoja is the chairman of the Medical Laboratory Professional Workers Union Kolebu chapter. Now, the newly appointed acting head of the Kolebu Central Laboratory, Dr. Charles Ofe-Palm, while confirming his appointment, said he would serve as a bridge between the two factions to help resolve the issue permanently.
I think I was giving a call that I've been appointed as to head the medical lab for the time being by the chief director, whilst they solve the impasse between the physician laboratories and the medical laboratory science. So this morning I came to take up a new role, and I met the union leaders together with the staff. And as a head now, acting head, they are taking me around to see how daily activities are being carried out. The first thing is that they are working, they are in full gear working, very, very, very happy about what they do, and trying to let me know some of the things that they will want to be done for them to. And so as the acting head, I'm taking all the notes, all the information or pieces of advice necessary to inform management about their requests and recommendations. So I'm just bridging the gap between the two people. And I can assure you that we are going to have a swift solution to this problem, the impasse.
That was the acting head of the Kolebu Central Laboratory, Dr. Charles Ofe-Palm.
This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We are coming to you from our studios in Accra. I am Umaru Sandamadu here with Fafa Melody Potufe. We return to talk about other stories. Please stay with us.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Momo. It has made life happen in lots of good ways.
Mr. Kwanzaa, Mensaka insurance claim no.
It has put together beautiful weddings. It has filled the bellies of boys at their favorite watchy joint.
My guy, stop. Who they chop cancel these days?
It has made millions of businesses possible.
Mensaka no. We are back in business.
With just a few taps, money moves faster, easier, and safer. Momo understands the weight of your trust in us. We continuously enhance security with features like self-paying reset to help you protect your money. Momo will only call you with 0244 300,000. No MTN or Momo staff will call or ask for your PIN or one-time password. Do not transfer funds to anyone whose identity you have not verified. Do not approve any prompts you have not initiated. Momo, still Munsaka.
Looking for engineering excellence you can trust?
Welcome to Left Signature Limited, driving progress through technology and engineering excellence.
From expert electrical engineering design, installation, power systems, renewable energy, automation and control,
to reliable data center and managed services, power infrastructure, network connectivity, server virtualization, cloud integration and data security,
and cutting-edge software development, custom business applications, web and mobile apps, cloud and DevOps solutions.
Integrity, safety, accountability, teamwork. That's the Left Signature promise.
And now, introducing the Left Power app.
Request for our services anytime, anywhere. Available on the Play Store, App Store, and on the web.
Ready to power your success?
Choose Left Signature Limited. Visit www.leftsignature.com.
Call +233 256 111 811.
Left Signature Limited. Engineering excellence for a connected future.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. B National in Wa says, I appeal to the doctors to consider their decision to return to the hospital to take care of our parents. Ode Amponsa in Ebrese Square. Is the doctor saying that because of the systemic issues, Mr. Emisa's death is justified? I don't think he said that. Akapo Jr. in Havomim says, increasing days for writing BEC will affect academic work of senior high schools as the period holds academic work in all schools considered as centers. Students cannot go to class during the period and they are not allowed to go home too. Kennedy Onipayede says, kudos to the Ministry of Health for taking action against these doctors who misbehaved towards the accident patient. It is sad that people who are supposed to save lives are ignoring patients in our hospitals. Paul in Gbechle says, Sanda, the doctors have no shame for coming out to say they are being scapegoated. What's difficult about giving a patient in critical conditions first aid? It should have happened to their parents, then they would understand. Asokori Joseph says, Godfrey Dami is crying because he can't fix matches anymore. Which match are you talking about? Joseph Boyinla says, good evening, Omaru. Doctors will always have reasons for their negligence. It's far too long. I think Charles Emisa's case should be used as deterrent for the other doctors to emulate. Several cases of wrong medication, etc., is not even attended to Abba Papa Bampa. Conlan Nathaniel Bila in Jimbali, Nyonyo, Naswam district of the Northeast region says, what is this doctor saying at all? Is he saying that the Ghana Medical and Dental Council is more powerful than the committee of the ministry? Well, he said that the council would have to still act on it. And if you notice, our messages are coming from all over the country, and this is because we are live across Ghana on a number of affiliate stations, and Fafa is going to help us with a list of stations that bring out this broadcast.
Well, in the Western region, you can tune into Premier 100.5 FM, Beach 105.5 FM, and Sky 93.5. Or Intercrad in the Bono region, we are green at 95.9 FM in Sunyai. In the Ahafo region, it's Hammers Radio 106.5 FM in Gosu. In the Ashanti region, we are Alpha Radio 104.9 and Orange 107.9 FM or in Kumasi. In the Volta region, we are Global 105.1 FM in Ho, Adanu 107.7 FM in Adakluwaya. In the northern region, you can tune into Diamond 93.7 FM in Tamale. In the upper west region, it's Westlink 88.1 FM in Laura and Pupili 92.7 FM in Wa. In the upper east region, we are Source 100.1 FM in Boku, Pure 100.5 FM in Navrongo, Gunzang 90.1 FM in Tongo. In the northeast region, we are Scarp 101.3 FM in Nakpanduri and Radio Jimbali 107.3 MHz in Jimbali.
Around the globe on YouTube and on citinewsroom.com. That's our website. You can find more stories there and also listen to Eyewitness News live from that platform. And if it's WhatsApp you want to send your reactions to, the number is 0539 986 996, 0539 986 996. And on WhatsApp, on X, mention my handle at Umar Rosanda or at Citi973. Fafa, I'm going to ask you a question. How many years ago since you wrote the BEC? Do you remember?
It's been about 9 years.
About 9 years.
Yes,
Okay. How many
about 9
subjects
years.
did you write?
I wrote 8 subjects.
8 subjects.
Yes.
Okay.
8
I wrote 9 subjects.
Okay.
It's supposed to have been 10 subjects. One of the people making that case is Kofi Asare. Let me go on the phone line and speak to him. He's Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, EduWatch. Mr. Asare, welcome to Eyewitness News.
Hi. Good evening, Sanda, and to your cherished audience.
Good evening to you. In 2003, at Asuchari Osudoku Secondary Technical, to be precise, I wrote 9 subjects in 5 days, 2 subjects a day, and I passed. And I'm here today. So what is wrong with writing 10 subjects in 5 days?
Well, what is wrong is that in 2003, BEC operated as both a second cycle entrance examination and a placement examination. Entrance examination to second cycle because one required to pass the BEC to obtain at least ID 36, and I'm sure you did obtain below 36, in order to qualify for secondary. So without getting 36, you won't proceed to secondary. That was the first function of BEC, a second cycle entrance examination, more or less. The second function was that it was a placement examination, which meant that after passing or getting below 36, it also helped in determining the school that you will attend. I'm talking about the category of the school that you will attend. So these dual functions underpinned the relevance of BEC in 2003 when you wrote it. Today, a lot of things have changed. We are currently running a free senior high school program, which virtually has come to upgrade the free compulsory basic education program, which, as I said, in 2003. Now, however, under the free senior high school, the cut-offs that existed when you were writing your BEC have virtually been removed. So almost everybody who is writing the BEC is qualifying for secondary. Even aggregate 52 is qualifying for secondary. So that has changed since 2003. Now, as a result of the removal of cut-offs from the secondary school qualification, obviously, it is right that BEC's relevance or function is now restricted to mainly secondary school placement and not second cycle qualification. So, if the BEC examination is today only relevant to determine who goes to Presec and who goes to Canton or who goes to Benkum Senior High School, and not in determining who can proceed to second cycle, why are we still maintaining the 10 subjects also that you wrote in 2003? Because the relevance has diminished to only one instead of the 2 functions. That is the situation we find ourselves in. And that is the context within which we should see the current relevance of BEC.
So is your position that we should slash down the number of subjects from 10 to what? Or your position is that maintain the 10 subjects but give them a longer duration to write the exams?
Our position has been since 2003, since 2023, that the subjects we are running at the secondary, at junior high school, which normally is called lower secondary, are okay. There's nothing wrong with the subjects that are being taught. But our position has to do with the assessment. And we are saying that if BEC is being maintained because of the sole purpose of school placement, then it can't be in the same form as it used to be when you were writing yours in 2003. Because then the design was that it was meant, one, as a secondary school qualification examination, second cycle qualification examination, and then school placement. So now that everybody is going to secondary school, significantly. About over 90% of those who are writing are qualified secondary school. Not everybody is going to secondary school. And BEC is now a school placement examination. Then redesign the BEC examination to look like a school placement examination and not one that's assessing proficiency, one that is determining whether you qualify to proceed to second cycle, and then one that also determines the school attend. That is not what the BEC currently. So that's all we are saying. And looking at international best practice, no country examines students in 10 subjects for the purpose of placing them in upper secondary. It's not done anywhere. It's not done anywhere. I can give you many examples. Let me start from the countries that we are learning from. Before we started free senior high school, I had a period of studying various free senior high school systems in Africa and then also in South America. There is no country in Southern Africa where free senior high school started, primarily in Africa and South America, where after lower secondary school, which we call junior high school, you need to write an external examination, which is high stakes, to determine whether you proceed or to determine whether you proceed to secondary or to determine the school you attend at secondary. No. The only external examination you write in a free secondary school to a free senior high school regime is your WASI. It is only in the British system where you write your first terminal examination, your first terminal or end of terminal. I mean, your first external assessment examination is written at grade 11, which is at O level. Okay, they don't do any examination at secondary school Form 3. No. So there is nowhere in the world where students are examined at the end of lower secondary, in a high stakes external assessment. It is not done. So if you have a school placement purpose for BC, then we must position the BC in the form that school placement examination takes. And in some countries, it's an aptitude test. Then they will add your continuous assessment. But where we are having so many subjects like that, the stress level is very, very high. And it's not commensurate to the purpose of the BEC. And so we are recommending that let's reduce the BEC to the course, to the 3 core math, English, science, and then have a general paper to take care of the other subjects. So every student will learn and not say that, we will learn only these 3 other subjects. So that's the further we are. When we do that, it will reduce BEC to 4 subjects. It may take minimum 2 days to write BEC instead of 6 days. It will reduce the stress level. It will reduce the budget the government has for BEC. Government spends in excess of 200 million a year on BEC. It will reduce it to at least 100 million.
But sorry, if you do that, and you say to the students at the basic school level that study 10 subjects, you would be examined in only 4 or 3, they will not take the others seriously, because they know that there will be no, judgment day, quote and unquote.
Yeah, Sandra, I didn't say that. What I said was that they will write the 3 core math, English, science as separate or standalone subjects during the BEC, and then the remaining subjects, the language, ICT, social studies, etc., will be in a form of a general paper with sections on each relevant language or each relevant subject area, so that you cannot discriminate when learning, because the general paper captures all the other subject areas except the standalone 3.
Okay.
In that case, you cannot specialize. But let me even address that question. You see, in Ghana, because we don't have a fully developed formative assessment system, including continuous assessment, we tend to, overly assume that examining students is the only way they will learn. Especially examining them externally is the only way you get them to learn. But that is not the case. It is not the case that examining students externally is the only way you get them to learn. If you have strong continuous assessment systems and you have strong other formative assessment systems like end of term examination and then end of academic year assessment system in line with Ghana's standard-based curriculum assessment framework, it won't be possible that you wait for students to write BECE before they will learn the subject. Then it means that there's something wrong with our system. And so the assessment framework recommended in the standard-based curriculum currently being implemented requires that we take formative assessment, which is the terminal assessment, continuous assessment, the end of academic assessment, as serious, even more serious than the 1 day assessment or 1 hour assessment for BECE, because you would have done about 10 of such formative assessment throughout your junior high school year. And that's where the actual learning takes place, because you are assessed, learning gaps identified, and then learning improvement, teaching improvement interventions deployed to help bridge the gap, or if you like, to help remediate where there are gaps.
Okay.
You understand? That is proper assessment informing continuous teaching and learning.
One last question.
So,
where you said that,
is that we need BECE before we can learn.
Okay. Where you say that a general paper should take care of all the other subjects, and in my case, I should have written 10 subjects. I wrote 9. You're suggesting that out of these 10 subjects, a student writes 3, English, Science, Maths separate, and then vocational skills, Dangbe, RME, social, all of them would be put in one paper. How many questions would there be for 7 subject areas? It would be pretty a long paper, wouldn't it? And how many days would it take to write that? Even if it were to be multiple choice questions, how many questions can you really set from how many subjects for a 1 day paper?
Well, you have 7 subjects. You are being examined. A maximum of 7 subjects. Let me put it that way. A maximum of 7 subjects, because it's not everybody supposed to do 10 or 11. So it's a maximum of 7 subjects. You are doing okay. And so it is up to the assessors to do the weighing. Okay, how many a section on language? How many questions on that? You're going to have maybe part 2, right? Yes. So they can determine how many. I mean, the weighting. Which subjects should we give a higher weight? Is it the ICT? Is it language? Or is it social studies? Or you understand? So the weighting will be done. I started by telling you that in other jurisdictions, they use aptitude tests, combining it with your continuous assessment. BECE currently also factors in continuous assessment. It is not that it doesn't. 30% come from continuous assessment. And so by saying that we do a general paper, it doesn't mean that that's the only one they are relying on. You have continuous assessment already in those subject areas. And so if we are strengthening our continuous assessment system to make it more credible, okay, and then we are building systems that will not let us overly rely on BECE to determine who goes to PRESEC, because all the conversation I'm having with you, Sander, is because we are looking for a criteria.
Yeah, I get you.
To determine who will go to PRESEC or who will go to Canton. If we had the criteria,
I don't like you using PRESEC and Canton. You're suggesting that PRESEC is high and Canton is low.
Oh, I normally use Benkum.
No, I want you to use Temasco as a high, and then use your school. Which school did you go to?
Benkum. I normally use Benkum.
No, use NIFA. Use NIFA for this purpose. So use NIFA.
So we are category. We are not category A. So to determine who goes to
you can attack my school. Let's leave it here. Thank you, Mr. Kofi. Thank you so much. He's the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, EduWatch. Let me speak to John Kapi. He's head of public affairs at WAEC. WAEC organizes the BECE. Mr. Kapi, welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know if you were listening into Kofi Asari. They are saying the 10 subjects too much for the students, especially since BECE has now simply become a tool to determine which school you go to in the secondary school category, but not whether you would make it to secondary school at all. The competitive nature in the BECE has been taken away. As a result, he wants you to examine students in just 3 subjects: mathematics, English, social studies, science. And then the others can be done as a general paper and so that they don't have to spend 5 days writing 10 subjects. What's your view as WAEC?
Yeah, thanks for having me. The issue about determining what should be examined and what should not be examined does not lie solely in the bosom of the council. We work usually with the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. We also work with the Ghana Education Service generally. And of course, before they even determine what is taught and what should be examined, they would have considered what our manpower needs are. So it is not solely the job of WAEC to determine whether we are going to assess the candidates only in 4 subjects. It takes quite a debate. We'll have to bring together academia, we'll bring together industry, and determine whether if we limit it to the 4, we'll still be able to come out with the kind of manpower that Ghana needs.
But is it practical for you? You are just conductors of the exams. If you are told to reduce it in the form that has been prescribed, is that something that would be practical for you? And do you also hold a view, even though that's what you currently operate, do you hold a view that the 5 days for 10 subjects is too cumbersome for children of that age?
Well, if you look at the level at which we are assessing these children, their maturity level and all of that, if you are limiting them to just a few subjects, I mean, this is a personal opinion I'm expressing. The office has not discussed anything like that. I believe that what we're going to do is simply to be limiting the children to just a few things that they pay more attention to. I've heard you asking whether it should not be the case where the children will not pay too much attention to a general paper because they think that it's really not going to be assessed. It's not going to be anything big to be assessed. So I believe that just like with the new curriculum in the senior high schools, you pick up one subject after a year or so, you have to drop it because it is not relevant to your career path, So gradually, that is the path that we are going to go. But then, at the base, it is broad, and as you go up, it narrows because then you are going to begin to specialize in one area or another.
All right. The BEC that you conduct currently is not competitive. Do you agree? Because anything goes, even aggregate 50, 100 will take you to secondary school because of the free senior high school. So how useful really is a BEC today?
Well, the law that established the BEC was supposed to, have it as an examination that determines who. It's a selection exam, actually, to the senior high school and then from there to the universities or any other tertiary institution for that matter. Again, the BEC was not meant to be solely academic. It was also supposed to have a component that has to do with learning a trade, just so that when people get in there and they realize that maybe the academic thing is not theirs, they will shift to the other side where they probably would learn a trade like what they used to do for pre-tech and those kind of things, So that's what the BEC system was about. And then also at the time for entry into senior high school, it was between aggregate 6 and 36. And even I recall very well that sometime in the early 2000s, even people with 18 wouldn't venture to any school to want to gain admission to senior high school. But with the advent of free SHS, we seem to have gone overboard. We seem to be, as it were, filling in all the spaces with whatever aggregates that they have. So I don't know whether there has been a rethink of the initial plan to have only the elite. If I use elite, I use that advisedly. Those who are academically inclined to go into senior high school, then the others may venture into maybe technical schools and learn a trade. Maybe we've gone beyond that, but once we are not part of the policy makers, I will not be able to comment beyond whatever I've just said.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's my pleasure.
That's John Kapi. He's head of public affairs at the West African Examination Council, WAEC. Fafa.
Now, the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Shremsai, has slammed Godfred Yeboah-Dame over his comments regarding the withdrawal of charges against accused person in the National Food Buffer Store Company case. The former Attorney General, Godfred Dame, who is counsel for the former NAFCO CEO, described the move as an abuse of the legal process. However, in an interview with the media, Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Shremsai described the reaction as surprising, explaining that the approach is standard practice when new evidence is uncovered. Now, Dr. Justice Shremsai also raised concerns over the failure of Godfred Dame to make himself available for interrogation regarding the new evidence uncovered.
In the courts on Hanan, and he made some requests, some of which have been granted, others may be granted in the future, and others are. When Hanan was sent to Yoko, he was supposed to just be interrogated immediately, then will be discharged. But he fell sick and was taken to the hospital. And when he came back, instead of his lawyers, the former Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, Attorney General, to come so that interrogation would be done, he chose to rather be granting interview in his office and in the media and calling into radio programs to say things that he knows are wrong and are not true.
You are Dr. Justice Shremsai, the Deputy Attorney General.
This Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We'll return with business news and then we have Point Blank. Please stay with us.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Hello, my name is Wakadri and I'm a man of many voices. Some people fall for Pamela.
Good afternoon, this is Pamela. We're revalidating some mobile app accounts. Kindly confirm your details.
Oh, my other victims who think I'm calling from.
Hello, customer experience here. Your account has been blocked. Please provide your PIN so we can reactivate it immediately.
Others panic and fall for that one. Dear customer, click the link in the SMS we just sent you to upgrade to your ATM services. My favorites are the ones who click first and think later.
Be honest. Like play, you could also fall for this. Stay safe. Remember, EcoBank will never call, email, or send an SMS asking for your PIN, OTP, bank card, or Ghana card details. Pay attention to detail.
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
This damn patch again. Ebo, look at this wall. Every few months, the same damn patch comes back. I've painted it twice already. What is all this?
Kofi, you can't fight moisture with paint.
The problem is inside the building itself. Yes. So what can I do? The house is already finished.
Simple. Gasem Super Strong Waterproof Cement. It's a new cement with built-in water protection technology.
Water protection?
Yes.
So it's just for repairs?
No, my friend. That's the difference. Use it to fix dampness and seepage. Or use it for new buildings. Foundation, block work, plastering. One cement that builds and protects.
Wow.
Gasem Super Strong Waterproof Cement. The one cement that builds and protects. Build it right once. Gasem, the nation builder.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. Citi Business News. Be informed.
Time now for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I am Melody Fafak, but let's settle for the details now. Chinese battery materials giant Zhejiang Huayo Cobalt is moving to acquire Atlantic Lithium in a deal valued at about $210 million, a move expected to accelerate the development of Ghana's flagship Ewoya lithium project and deepen the country's role in the global electric vehicle supply chain. Here's more.
Under the proposed transaction, Huayo will acquire all issued shares in Atlantic Lithium through an Australian scheme of arrangement, offering shareholders a little over 25 cents per share in cash. The offer represents a premium of more than 26% to the company's last closing share price. The transaction is also being viewed as a major endorsement of the Ewoya lithium project, which is expected to become Ghana's first Zimbabwe's lithium-producing mine. Atlantic Lithium says the acquisition could fast-track project financing, development and eventual production at a time when global demand for battery minerals continue to rise alongside the transition to cleaner energy technologies. The deal further strengthens Wayo's growing footprint in Africa's critical mineral sector following its investment in Zimbabwe's lithium industry. The transaction, however, remains subject to shareholder, court and regulatory approvals, including clearance from Ghanaian authorities. Atlantic Lithium expects shareholders to vote on the deal in November this year, with completion targeted for December 2026.
Emmanuel Opon with that business desk report. Now, government statistician Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu says the wide gap between Ghana's inflation rate and the central bank's benchmark policy rate reflects a deliberate and measured monetary policy approach aimed at preserving macroeconomic stability despite easing price pressures. His comments come as inflation edged up slightly to 3.4% in April from 3.2% in March, while the Bank of Ghana's policy rate remains significantly higher at 14%.
The point I'm trying to make is that even though we've seen the policy rates reduce, but that's a cautious reduction. You know why I'm saying that? Cautious reduction because if you take the inflation rate, let's take last month. We just released this, so they're also now seeing the 3.4. But take last month, take March, 3.2 inflation. But the policy rate, the latest policy rate was 14%? Yes. So just look at the gap between the policy rates and then the inflation, wide. So if it says central bank that was just loosening, you would have seen all of a sudden the policy rate reduced drastically to match inflation, like maybe to 5% or 6%. But this is a cautious central bank. That is not to say that I'm talking for the central bank, but we are trying to explain why we are seeing the low figures that we are seeing. A cautious central bank, that is, you see, do its loosening, but the loosening is cautious.
You are the government statistician, Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu. Now, Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Cocoa Board, Dr. Randy Abbey, is confident in the domestic financing model for cocoa purchases set to commence in the 2026-2027 crop season as Ghana shifts away from the syndicated loan arrangement. Speaking during a panel discussion at the Made in Africa Cocoa Finance and Investment Forum 2026 at the London Stock Exchange, Dr. Randy Abbey described the shift in cocoa purchase financing as critical to the sustainability of Ghana's cocoa sector.
Buyer-led model, where we now needed to rely on the buyers to now fund the financing of the crop. So when we came in, we realized that was not sustainable, because what it meant was that you were shifting the financing cost to the buyer. But this occurred at a time when you had a global shortage of the bean. Between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire alone, there was a shortage of about 500,000 tons. And so everybody was desperate to get a crop. So you could then take advantage of the buyers. But we knew that it wasn't sustainable. So there was a need to look for a new funding model that we believe could be sustainable and also ensure that we're able to optimize local processing capacity. So that is when we started working on the new funding model for the crop. And then in 25-26, we all know what has happened to the prices on the market. So we're hoping that 26-27, with the 26-27 season, we'll be able to come up with a new financing model, which will be a domestic fundraising model. We're actually going to come up with commercial notes.
Here, Dr. Randy Abbey, Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Now, local rice producers have attributed the high cost of locally produced rice to rising production expenses coupled with an influx of cheaper imported brands on the market. The country is currently experiencing a rice glut with an estimated 1 million metric tons of unsold paddy rice sitting in warehouses across the country. Despite this surplus, Ghana continues to import about 60% of its rice consumption, spending more than $500 million annually on imports. Chairman of the Competitive African Rice Platform Ghana chapter, Yao Edupuku, has been lamenting the impact of the situation on local producers.
What we have to look at is the market. The market, government can make it a bit easy on the farmer
by giving them some slack with the payment of electricity, for example. We can subsidize those things and also push the importers to accept a quota system where the importer, if the importer is bringing 1,000 baht, let us tell the importer to bring 700 baht because there will be a gap if they don't bring rice. So if they bring 700, we will fill the 300. They will have to show a certification or a proof that, yes, they bought 300 from me and my colleagues. With this, they will still be importing. We will also be selling our rice, and they will be creating jobs.
That was the chairman of the Competitive African Rice Platform Ghana chapter, Yao Edu Puku. Now, the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy is questioning the government's ability to mobilize $22.6 billion to tackle climate change. The Minister of State in charge of climate change, Seydou Yusufu, recently indicated that government will require the amount to effectively address the country's climate challenges. However, speaking to Citi Business News, the executive director of the center, Benjamin Nsia, urged government to adopt a more targeted approach to its climate strategy.
As a country, from 2020, as we even revise our national determined contributions, which has an investment rate between 9 billion and then 15 billion, we've not been able to mobilize enough resources to adapt and mitigate the 47 conditional and non-conditional interventions or programs. Because sometimes we develop huge investment plans, we develop huge projections, thinking that development partners may come to our aid. So I think as a country we need to develop critical milestones and also be specific of what we want to mitigate or adapt in the very shortest possible term, which requires fewer or much lesser investment plan than what has been communicated to about $22 billion. We are likely not going to get it because it's quite huge.
Benjamin Nsia is the executive director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. Well, that's it for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I'm Melody Fafa. Potife. Up next is Point Blank.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Charlie, trim I'm nice. I get some serious meeting. Allah, motion. But Charlie, no credit today. Oh, but you relax. More day.
Hey, what funny.
Yes, so I borrow small, sort myself out, I pay back. We move. Spot there. Ah, Charlie, you sure say you dey pay back? Yes, so that anytime somebody else they need them, Momo day. Be like I for can't borrow some more. Hey, you this boy. Don't go there and disgrace yourself. Allah motion.
Responsible borrowing be the real flexo for today's needs and tomorrow's dreams. Borrow, sort them, pay back. Momo day.
The World Cup is coming, and this time you're not just watching it, you're living it. Match Experience Hospitality is giving you front row access to football's biggest stage in absolute style. Think VIP stadium seating, exclusive lounges, gourmet dining, and priority access. No stress, no hassle, just pure football luxury. This isn't just a ticket. This is the World Cup experience. With over a decade as an official FIFA sales agent, Match Experience Hospitality knows exactly how to turn a match into a lifetime memory. So upgrade your World Cup. Call 055-155-1119. Visit matchexphospitality.com or walk into any Absa Bank branch, our official banking partner today. Match Experience Hospitality. Don't just watch the game, live it. Match Experience Hospitality is doing this with Absa Bank as its official banking partner and Glyco as your official travel insurance partner.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
This is Point Blank on Eyewitness News. I am Umaru Sandamadu. Tonight on Point Blank, we'll hear from former Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame. He says the reaction by Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Tremsai is merely a face-saving gimmick, claiming the suspect was rather denied access to his lawyers. Now, what are we talking about? The former head of the National Food Buffer Stock Company, Hanan Abdul Wahab, was released after the state withdrew charges against him. Then he was rearrested. Godfred Dame is lawyer for Abdul Wahab. He is not happy with that state of affairs. Dr. Tremsai slammed the former AG, saying that he has not been following the proceedings and also the interests of his client, and that he has been moving on TV and radio stations granting interviews rather than working for the interests of his client. So let's listen. My colleague Hansen Ajiman sat with the former Attorney General Godfred Dame for an interview on that matter and more. Please let's listen.
I think that the treatment given to Hanan by the prosecutors and investigators, and you see that as time goes on, I'm sure the cases is indicative of a deliberate attempt start troubling, and they will trouble in a very spectacular fashion. And so, you cannot do that.
Let's end with
and how can you hold a press conference and cite a particular case as more or less a showpiece of your oral fight and all that, and say that this will be a Rambo in the jungle, it's going to be. It's very much untoward, completely untoward for an Attorney General to mount a press conference and state that this case is going to be like a Rambo in the jungle. What is it? Is it some kind of cinema? Clearly, I think that we should hold ourselves to some high standards.
Let's end with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, an office that was created when you were Deputy Attorney General. The AG essentially says that without giving them authorization, they can't operate. Why didn't your boss and yourself give them authorization?
Other questions. So number one, I think I consider all that is going on, the tussle between the government and the Office of the Special Prosecutor as most unfortunate, and indeed I find it very, very shocking and unwarranted, and I think it ought not to have happened at all, because you cannot have any serious government which has an agenda against an anti-corruption institution. The government's duty, one major function of the government, is to instill accountability in the republic, is to ensure that there is the rooting out of impunity and punishment for wrongdoing.
To the detriment of the dictates of the Constitution?
That's actually in the spirit of the Constitution. There's the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. That the government, if you look at the preamble, it commences with "We the people of Ghana," and it has certain words we say in the spirit of promotion of accountability, probity, and all. How can you promote probity and accountability without anti-corruption institutions?
But they are saying that those corruption institutions should be situated in the space of the law.
And I'm saying that number one, the OSP has its mandate firmly anchored in the Act at 959. And indeed, there's no inconsistency whatsoever between Act 959 and the Constitution. Why do I say so? Because if you look at the construction of the statute, both in the preamble and Section 4, which vests the OSP with some limited prosecutorial authority, it recognizes the Attorney General's overall power to prosecute criminal offences. It recognizes the Attorney General's broad mandate. And it's because it commences with the words subject to Article 88 of the Constitution. The Attorney General shall authorize the Special Prosecutor to prosecute X, Y, Z offences. It's corruption and corruption-related offences, essentially. So that in itself shows a clear recognition that whatever procedural authority is being given to the OSP is subject to Article 88.
But is that authorization also enough, or there's supposed to be an administrative letter written to the OSP?
I think that we have been led astray the whole nation by this whole constitutional action by the citizen of Ghana, who actually happens to be a junior colleague of the Deputy Attorney General. How can I find it even incongruous? If I was Attorney General, I'm sure all hell would have broken loose. And I've had some junior colleagues of mine in my former office institute an action, and I then file a brief in the Supreme Court supporting and affirming the action by my junior colleague.
So they
would have alleged conspiracy and what have you. But I don't know whether the standards for the NDC seem to be lower than the standards that the civil society and all held us to. But I'm saying that the test for a constitutional action to start with is an inconsistency of a particular provision and enactment with the Constitution, or whether an act or omission of a person is in contravention of the Constitution. Save these situations, or indeed whether some words in the provision of the Constitution are ambiguous, unclear, and what have you. Save these circumstances, there cannot be a proper constitutional action. So you see that in this action pending before the Supreme Court, I see the absence of a genuine issue for constitutional interpretation. I say so because the letter and spirit of Section 4 of Act 959 recognizes the Attorney General's superior prosecutorial authority and indeed mandates the Attorney General to authorize the prosecution. I think there has been sufficient delegation of the Attorney General's prosecutorial authority by not only the Act 959 but also the legislative instrument.
The argument is that Parliament by that then seems to amend Article 88 and have not gone through the appropriate means of amending Article 88 by constitutional amendment.
No, how? I think that
because if you take it the way it is, then it means that Parliament authorized the Office of the Special Prosecutor instead of the AG authorizing.
No, definitely not. I mean, no. So the issues. So the question of the manner of authorization is different and distinct from whether a constitutional or whether there's actually a constitutional violation of Section 4 with Article 88. And I'm saying to start with, Article 88 is not inconsistent with
Section 4.
Section 4 is not inconsistent with Article 88 because Section 4 clearly on the face of it recognizes the Attorney General's overall prosecutorial authority and says that provision is subject to Article 88. It goes further to require the Attorney General. It says Attorney General shall authorize the special prosecutor to prosecute for corruption and corruption-related offences. Now, I'm saying that the Attorney General further, pursuant to that, enacted the special prosecutor operations regulations of 2018, LI 2374, under the hand of the Attorney General herself, Madame Gloria Kufu, by which there has been delegation of the Attorney General's power to prosecute for those offences in Regulation 11. So in any case, even if authorization is not sufficient for this current Attorney General, I, in my view, considered it sufficient. And if that authorization is not sufficient for this Attorney General, all the current Attorney General has to do is to authorize it.
To clarify,
authorize it.
To clarify, the case at the Supreme Court does not properly invoke the jurisdiction of the court.
As far as I'm concerned.
The processes of enactment of the law and the subsequent passage of the regulations amounts to authorization.
Yes, sufficient.
And if the current Attorney General
finds it insufficient,
okay with it, he should just
proceed
issue the letter
to execute an executive instrument.
But it says the OSP should ask.
But that is the most absurd proposition. So that's what I'm saying, that is indicative of the unwillingness of the government to fight corruption. It's actually indicative of the government's effort to collapse the office of the special prosecutor. I, as Attorney General, executed various executive instruments mandating some institutions to prosecute. I remember the EPA, Forestry Commission, and the YOCO, and all that, whereby we gave them some limited.
But in those instances, those institutions requested.
No,
didn't you on your own day?
But where is the law which says that there must be a request? No. There's no law which says there must be a request. So I do not think so. Clearly, they're leading us astray. It's just a charade. All that request but the Attorney General himself indicated that he's going to take over the OSP's cases. Why would the Attorney General take over over the OSP's case.
Pursuant to a High Court order.
No, the High Court.
The High Court has said that
the
AG should take over OSP cases because of
pending or before there is authorization.
Yes, before there is authorization.
Precisely. So the Attorney General should proceed and do it, and that's a 5-minute function. All the Attorney General has to do is not an executive instrument. An executive instrument does not go to Parliament. It's actually one which is administrative in nature, and I have executed that many times. The Attorney General, this same Attorney General, when he's zealously taking over the cases for the OSP, is actually going to court with local prosecutors who are not mandated by him to even prosecute. And he's actually announcing him.
He's actually put a break on taking over the case after that initial announcement.
So if he considers the absence of authorization to be the case, he should proceed and authorize. And I'm saying that the process of authorizing has nothing to do with whether the act itself is consistent with the Constitution or not. To determine whether the act is consistent with the Constitution or not, you only have to look at the provision to see whether it violates the Constitution. Simple as that, or it's in contravention, or it's inconsistent with the Constitution. It's as simple as that, and you have to do it.
Finally, should we be seeing you at the Supreme Court as a friend of the court in this matter?
Well, we'll see what happens. I think that it is indeed, the point ought to be made that there's no way this would have happened in the Akufo-Addo administration. President Akufo-Addo would not have countenanced any Attorney General of his in fighting the OSP.
Because it's his baby idea. So
if any Attorney General came to collision with the OSP, the Attorney General would have lost his work. I would have decided as Attorney General if I had gone on a collision course with the OSP. So what is happening for me is actually an attempt by the government through the Attorney General to collapse the office. And it's clear that they do not want accountability. Because if the government, the essence of the OSP is to ensure the existence of an institution which is independent and capable of probing and prosecuting various acts and omissions bordering on corruption in the time of the government, and not wait until after. Now, this same Attorney General, in the bid to prevent a scrutiny of members of his own party, came and entered no prosecute for all the cases that were pending against members of his party. And consistent with that, he's seeking to collapse or kill an anti-corruption institution which will probe members of his own party. So you see a trend. First, shut out all the cases pending, kill them through the entry of no prosecute. Secondly, kill any avenue for probing your own government whilst they are in office. I mean, so I think that's I have no idea on the rent issue. Apart from that, the substantive matters for deliberation by Yoko and interrogation today were centered on the same old charges.
As a former Attorney General, you handle a case or you sign off on a prosecution. Prosecution takes place up to 5-6 months to CMC. Then there's withdrawal, and it's the same charges.
Right.
It's the same evidence. Is this something you're going to sign?
Well, I think that you must view the development in the context of what had occurred earlier in the preceding weeks. That there was an attempt by the prosecution in this matter, the Hanan matter, to smuggle in evidence that originally did not form part of the record. Per the practice direction which was given by the Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, and which is part of the criminal procedure in the court, or the evidence of every witness is supposed to be in the form of a witness statement, where every witness, whether for the prosecution or defense, has to be in the form of a witness statement. And that witness statement will have to contain all relevant exhibits and all. And so there's a conduct of a case management conference before the witness even proceeds to read out his witness statements as evidence in chief. And that is what had been done. 5 witnesses for the prosecution. They've all filed their witness statements, and to which was attached some bulky evidence here and there, and all. And indeed, 2 major boxes of bulky evidence attached to the witness of the prosecution, the main witness for the prosecution, was withdrawn. on account of objections that we raised. And afterwards, they attempted to smuggle in through the back door a fresh witness statement. And that is what I raised objection to. That no, you cannot do that, because per the rules of engagement which we're all working with, you must seek leave. And the leave is not just for the sake of it or the fun of it. It is supposed to demonstrate grounds why you bring in the application. It's also further to demonstrate which information you are bringing and why that information if indeed the information was not available to you at that time or was not known to you at that time, then it is permissible. If it was, then you have no basis at all. And the prosecution persisted and the court gave a ruling.
Because the point we heard was that it was just a procedural matter, had to do with they not seeking leave, and they could have sought leave on the next agenda to bring these. But you're saying that they ought to have met a standard of was that information available to you at the time we're filing your witness
statement? Also, we saw the witnesses when we looked at it. We're not even required to examine it. We examined it. We're not scared. But I'm saying that the proper thing ought to have been done. So that procedural lapse.
So you think it has an influence on the decision later to withdraw the charges?
I'm not really required to teach them how to conduct their cases. It's entirely their prerogative to conduct their case, and so it's up to them to take a decision. If indeed it's the same matter that they wanted to either boost or enhance, and they wanted to come by way of amendment, they could have done so. Perhaps they have another strategy. They want to withdraw from that court and send to another court or whatever. They don't know. It's up to them. I, as an attorney general, was not doing that. I did not recall any instance at which leave was not sought for filing of witnesses and all that.
So, but you don't have a problem with they using the withdrawal, they withdrawing the charges?
Well, I have said it that
because there are those who've argued that at the time where Deputy Attorney General, mention can be made of Paul Gregory Afoko, where even the matter had gone all the way close to judgment, but withdrawal was done.
Well, I've said it that number one, I mean, it's their prerogative to control the manner in which prosecution is done. They could have withdrawn at any time. When they were withdrawing, I just made that point to the court, and I said, well, we can only be thankful or grateful to the court for the reprieve from prosecution, because as it is now, there's no prosecution, there's no case pending in court. And the Deputy Attorney General, in response, stated that the counsel for the second accused should follow the cue or take a cue from what I had stated in court, and not making any further comments, which is fine. But this Gregory Afoko matter, I don't know where it is coming from. Indeed, if that's the only instance of a withdrawal that they can cite, then I wonder. It tells you that we really held ourselves to the highest standards of prosecution. Right. So the matter is simple. Yes, because Gregory Afoko, for me, even is incomparable. It's a case that involved the gruesome murder of a citizen of Ghana, the late Northern Regional Chairman of the MPP, and the circumstances that we were all alarmed and disgusted by. And 2 accused persons had been arraigned on the charge sheet. One of them somehow managed to flee or abscond from the jurisdiction. So the former Attorney General, Madame Gloria Kufu, the exercise of her discretion, continued the trial of that one accused person who was in the jurisdiction. That is Gregory Afoko. And it was not, with all respect, frivolous, because there was evidence of acid being on his trial. The person was killed through the pouring of acid onto his face and all that. And there was evidence of acid and all, because they conducted forensic tests and all that to see on his clothes and all that. So there was some basis for the prosecution. And that commenced. In the course of the prosecution, the other accomplice was arrested in Côte d'Ivoire, somewhere in Côte d'Ivoire, and then was brought back into the jurisdiction. The former Attorney General, Madame Gloria Kufu, with the exercise of her discretion, for the need to discontinue and arraign the accused persons before the same court on the same charge sheet.
Is this something you had control over?
No,
because
I was never.
Somebody would have argued that if you're almost done with Gregory Afoko, why won't you allow it to go all the way to judgment and start prosecution against the second accused?
In any case, so it's very important you ask that question. Is this something I had control over? I had never any control over criminal prosecutions when I was Deputy Attorney General. There were 2 Deputy Attorney General, as the records will show, and I was responsible for civil. That is why most of the time you saw me in the Supreme Court on the constitutional matters. So I had no role in any. The only role I played in this Afoko matter was when Afoko challenge the constitutional power of the Attorney General to enter a nullity prosequi.
So that's Godfred Yeboah Dami. He's a former Attorney General speaking to our legal affairs correspondent, Hansen Najiman. And that's by way of Eyewitness News tonight, which came to you from our studios in Accra. I am Omar Rusanda Amado. I did this with Melody Fafakpa Tufe. Produced by Juliana Odami Asari, Beverly London, Kwabena Wilson, Sami Wiafi, Fred Tete Jabano, and Christopher Kevin Esima. Technical support from Emmanuel Lati. New media support from the new media team led by Edwin Kwakofi. We'll be back tomorrow at 17:30 GMT. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.